Chosen one, this message didn't find you by accident. Something in you shifted. You felt in your chest before the world could name it. The trials, the nights you prayed and wondered if you'd make it, those were not random. They were preparation. You were chosen to break the chain your family thought permanent. You were the first to climb where others stumbled. You will stand where generations before you fell. Think like an engineer who sees a problem no one else will touch. Elon's playbook is to treat failure as data and delay as calibration. You too were being calibrated. Every scar has taught you a tolerance, every loss a precision. God didn't just let you survive the storm. He placed you at the center of it to learn how to pilot through. Now you carry a legacy-altering frequency inside you. The courage to rewrite what always was into what can be. This is bigger than personal comfort. This is about lineage. When one person's breakthrough happens, an ancestral pattern fractures. Your rise is the pivot point where cycles stop and new possibilities begin. It's not merely ambition, it's stewardship. You are appointed to build a different table for those who come after you. They may have laughed. They may have whispered that you were dreaming too big. But visionaries don't wait for permission. They prototype in private, iterate in silence, and launch when the window opens. Your quiet season was not a sign of weakness. It was the workshop of destiny. Now the alignment is here, the moment where faith and work meet and something irreversible begins. If this landed with you, if your spirit recognizes this word, do one thing now. Like, share, and subscribe. Hit the comments and type 77 if this frequency speaks to your soul. That number is not random. It's a symbol for new beginnings, a declaration that you're the first to rise, the first to break patterns, the first to step into what your family never saw coming. Breaking Generational Chains, Chapter 1. Selected 1. You didn't just start a brand new existence when you were born. You entered a conflict that has already started. It was a fight against the unseen cords that ran through your family, not against physical flesh and blood. Financial hardship was not the only aspect of poverty. Your family was plagued by this ghost for many generations. There was more to addiction than lousy habits. It was a generational plague that repeatedly attempted to recycle itself. Broken marriages, violent, fearful, depressive, and angry cycles. These events weren't arbitrary. Like inheritance documents, these were spiritual patterns that were handed down in the hopes that you would sign your name without doubt. However, God knew you even before you were created in your mother's womb. You were appointed by Him. You were the breaker He picked. You weren't put here to fit in with the dysfunction. You were the one who stood up and said, "This stops with me." You came here to mess with it. You never quite fit in with the family's customs because of this. That's why, even as a youngster, you had a deep-seated restlessness. You questioned the pandemonium while others accepted it. Even if you didn't know why, you refused to comply while others did. You knew in your heart that you were unique. And there was a wonderful distinction. Consider Abraham. He was called to leave his homeland, his father's home, and all he knew. Why? Because God had to keep him apart from his family's idolatrous tendencies. A whole new lineage of trust, covenant, and blessing was established by Abraham's obedience. Like Abraham, you were chosen and summoned to break free from the patterns that had imprisoned your lineage. It wasn't rejection when you split up. It served as defense. Take a look at Gideon. Write men to feel the peace of the angels and show your support with a super thank you up to $20. Altars dedicated to bogus gods were constructed at his father's home. However, before he could lead Israel to triumph, God instructed Gideon to destroy them. Why? For if you leave generational altars standing, you cannot walk in heavenly power. Selected 1. That is also your job. In your lineage, you were selected to destroy the altars. There are altars of sin, need, and terror. What your forebears were unable to dismantle, you are doing. Now realize this. Chains are difficult to break. The burden is always on the first member of the family. You experience emotional and spiritual opposition when you choose not to make the same errors you did in the past. Because He knows that if you win, your children and your children's children will be free from the things that held your parents and grandparents in slavery. The adversary wants you to give up. The struggle against you has been fierce because of this. The strain might be excruciating at times, since you're battling for more than just yourself. An whole lineage is at stake in this battle. You are breaking a link in the chain each time you decide to pray rather than panic. Every time you provide forgiveness, you're breaking a chain of resentment that extends through your family. You're breaking a bond every time you diligently sow and tithe, even though poverty has always hovered over your home. You are breaking a connection each time you maintain your purity in the face of lust's attempts to control your generation. The chain breaker is you. Chapter 2. The burden of being in the lead. Selected 1. It's not simple to be the first to ascend. It weighs a much. Even if you couldn't describe it, you've most likely carried this burden since you were a child. You are constantly aware of your uniqueness. But rather than being praised for it, you are often misinterpreted. Family members were unable to understand your differing viewpoint. Friends were unable to comprehend your larger dreams. People saw your unwillingness to conform to the same patterns as being too much, rebellious, or conceited. Right? Men, to feel the peace of the angels and show your support with a super thank you up to $20. The prophetic vision inside you, however, was invisible to them. Others in your lineage never had the sight you have. You saw potential where they saw restrictions. You wanted more where they sat, where cycles were repeated. There was tension because you wanted to break free. Being the first to see right made you the black sheep, not because you were mistaken. Know this. Being the first puts you on a path that no one else has taken. Being a pioneer gives you a sense of the wilderness's jagged edges that others will never have. Your family could not understand you because you're creating something they have never seen before, not because you're damaged. In reality, the burden is the mantle of leadership, yet it seems like loneliness. Consider Noah. He saw something that had never been seen before in a vision from God, a flood and rain. He bore the weight of being first even while the world made fun of him. The first person to construct an ark and enter into a covenant that would protect mankind. Or consider Moses. He led his people out of slavery before anybody else in his time did. Both Israelites and Egyptians misinterpreted him. However, such miscommunication demonstrated how special his task was. You are the chosen one. There is a call in your life that others could never completely understand. Furthermore, your loneliness is not a punishment. There is a divide. God had to separate you in order to implant in you instructions, visions, and dreams that the general public would never be able to see. The burden you bear is evidence that heaven believed in you to do something that no one else has ever been able to. It's weighty to be the first, indeed. The path seems more difficult. It seems like there is more opposition. It's sacrosanct, but the misconceptions go deeper. You are carrying your family's transformational flame. Where there used to be just wilderness, you are now laying a roadway. By establishing these foundations, future generations won't have to start from scratch. You are wired for a future your family has never known, which is why you think differently. God put eternity in your heart, which is why you have larger dreams. You are meant to disrupt the old cycles, not to repeat them, which is why you cannot accept them. You don't fit in because of this, and you won't. You weren't made to fit in, right? Men, to feel the peace of the angels and show your support with a super thank you up to $20. You were made to be a leader. Therefore, don't hate being alone. Don't curse the weight. Don't question your distinction. The proof that you are selected, anointed, and meant to bear what no one else could is the weight of being first. You are your generation's Noah, your family's Moses, and your lineage's Abraham. And even though it's a difficult journey, your obedience will lead to opportunities for many others. Chapter 3. Your spiritual task. Choose one. Realize this. Applause, celebrity, or comfort are not the keys to your success. It has to do with assignment. You weren't created by God to have a comfortable existence. You were designated for destiny by Him. You were chosen to carry out a spiritual task that will alter the destiny of your society, your family, and even generations you will never meet. The fierce struggles against you have been caused by this mission. The opponent didn't target you based only on your current identity. He pursued you because of the person you're growing into. He was the first to see the task on your life. He was aware that you would become a person who breaks thousands of shackles if you made it through the jails, the pits, and the wilderness seasons. You felt singled out, assaulted, and misinterpreted as a result. However, that targeting is evidence of the divine nature of your task. Consider Moses. Because his mission was too important to be interrupted, his life was spared from the Pharaoh's massacre. Comfort was not a factor in his selection. He was selected to guide a whole country out of slavery. Or Joseph. He was sold into slavery, dumped into a pit, and betrayed by his own brothers. However, his mission outweighed the suffering he went through. God put him in a position of power so that he could rescue his family and save an entire population during a famine. That's also how your life has been. To your people, you are Moses, the person who will guide them out of the cycles of poverty, fear, addiction, and enslavement in spiritual Egypt. To your family, you are the Joseph, the one who would face rejection, loneliness, and betrayal before gaining authority and becoming the solution to their problems. God's child, you have a generational task. It goes beyond just being fortunate. The goal is for you to become a gift. Your children and grandkids will live in freedom you never experienced because of your obedience. Your prayers will open doors for folks you may never even meet. Because even when things became tough, you didn't give up. A fresh tale of triumph rather than failure will be passed down through your lineage. As you can see, assignments are important. They demand sacrifice. Seasons of secrecy, during which no one can see the job you're performing behind your back, are often required. There are moments when you have to stand by yourself and trust God when no one else does. However, the task also conveys honor. The impact will go far beyond your lifetime if you accomplish it. You're not simply getting up for attention, chosen one. You're getting up to be saved. Your life serves as evidence that God is able to transform a history that was once filled with generational curses into one that is filled with benefits that last for generations. Your current prayers are sowing the seeds for miracles that will occur decades from now. Your current faith is opening doors for your successors. They won't have to fight the same fights because of the ones you've already won. Your task is sacred. Your ascent is not only a personal one. It's foretelling. There is a divine plan for you that extends beyond your life. Heaven wrote the plan long before you were born. Additionally, you become a living manifestation of the prayers your forefathers prayed but never saw come true when you live in obedience. So, selected one, go with courage. Heaven has entrusted this task to you. And remember this, no matter how heavy it seems. You will be carried through it by the same God who called you. Chapter 4. Your struggles are greater than yourself. Selected one. Your struggles have always carried a heavy burden. You realized early on that you had a tougher time in life than other people. You seemed to encounter frequent storms, hostility, and unanticipated conflict, although many around you survived with little struggle. However, keep in mind that fighting fiercely is not a sign of weakness. It indicates assignment. War is only waged by the adversary when there is something valuable to take. He solely opposes impactful futures. He solely targets oil-carrying boats. The devil pursued you so assiduously because of what you were meant to become, not because of who you were at the time. Long before you did, he saw the mantle on your life. He saw the power you would wield, the bonds you would shatter, the doors you would unlock, and the liberation you would provide, not just for yourself, but also for future generations. He could end everything associated with you if he could stop you. Because of this, the pressure has sometimes seemed intolerable. You've been singled out from infancy because of this. Consider it. Because Pharaoh worried Moses might become a deliverer, he chased him down when he was a baby. Herod felt Jesus held the key to the world's redemption, so he chased him as a baby. Despite being ignored and hated by his own family, David was crowned king. Likewise, your struggles have been a clear indication of your fate. Heaven has selected you, which is why hell has battled you. Your survival was just one aspect of each storm you overcame. You weren't only demonstrating your tenacity each time you got back up after being struck down. In the spiritual world, you are making changes. It has been a generational battle for you. You broke a chain for your family when you refused to give in to the same addictions that devastated others. You created a path for others to follow easily when you decided to continue in the face of despair, rejection, and betrayal. God child, realize this. You are never the only one fighting for yourself. Your children, grandkids, and even people you may never meet were all part of it. You were picked to fill the void, to be the one to break destructive patterns. Because of your obedience, perseverance, and faith, others would be set free, which is why the assaults were so intense. Nevertheless, you remain here in spite of all that has been hurled at you. You have weathered storms that others have not. You should have been crushed by the strain you've suffered. You should have been resentful of the treachery, but instead you became wiser. You have engaged in silent conflicts that no one was even aware of. God still kept you safe. This is evidence of the chosen one. You can't be stopped because of his influence on your life, not your strength. The devil attempted to destroy you, but all he accomplished was to demonstrate the true strength of your job. You are being prepared for the stage that God is setting by every conflict you have endured. The testimony that will silence your adversaries is being shaped by every storm you have faced. You are not a random survivor. It's deliberate. Heaven has saved you for this ascent, which is why you are still standing. Chapter 5. The change in your lineage. Selected 1. Do you understand the significance of what God is doing in your life? Your obedience benefits more than simply your own life. It's rewriting your whole family's history. The proof that cycles may be broken is you. Furthermore, you serve as evidence that generational curses need not endure. God is using you to create plenty where there was previously none. Restoration is being sown in your footsteps where there was brokenness. You're bringing a voice that speaks truth into the environment when there was quiet. You're opening spiritual eyes where blindness formerly existed. You are the change that your family did not anticipate. Examine the history of your ancestry. Perhaps generations before you lived in poverty, just making ends meet and never really achieving overflow. Perhaps the women who came before you were caught in abusive, heartbreaking, or abandoning cycles. Perhaps the guys in front of you were shackled by rage, addiction, or unrealized promise. In your family, these weights seem to be typical. Unspoken but hefty shackles. They were handed down like relics under the pretext of tradition. However, God made you unique. God created you to be the one who breaks shackles, breaks patterns, and says, "This ends with me." You were chosen. You didn't simply happen to be put in this position. For it, you were anointed. You weren't punished for your troubles. They were in training. You were changing something in the invisible every time you prayed, fought temptation, changed your course, or selected a different route when it would have been simpler to stick with the same one. Recognize that your ascent is foretelling. You changed your family's financial trajectory when you made the decision to stop living paycheck to paycheck and instead trust God for growth. By choosing forgiveness over resentment, you interrupted the cycle of strained relationships. You broke the head of generational addiction when you chose prayer over drug misuse. Although they may not have seemed to be significant triumphs at the time, they rocked foundations in spirit. Consider it this way. You are sowing the seeds for a garden that will be appreciated by decades to come. The freedom you fought for will be enjoyed by your kids, grandkids, and perhaps people you may never meet. Because of your steadfastness, they will inherit benefits rather than troubles. Because you resisted giving in to fear, they will be born into chances you never had. Because you constructed altars of prayer when no one else would, they will have spiritual covering. Selected 1. Your life is a sign from God that is possible. It is possible. You can break the curse. You're a live example of how God can create something lovely out of ashes. People will look at you and say, "But weren't they the one from that family of poverty? Weren't they the one whose family was filled with broken homes? How do they rise?" And the answer will be clear. God's hand, God's grace, and your obedience. Never forget, this is bigger than you. Your rise is not selfish. It is generational. You're carrying the assignment of legacy. When heaven looks at you, it doesn't just see one person. It sees a family, a bloodline, a nation connected to your obedience. Chapter 6. Walking in your new authority. Chosen one. Now that you've broken the chains and shifted the direction of your bloodline, you must also step into a new dimension. Authority. Being the first to rise isn't just about breakthrough. It's about walking in a mantle that carries weight. Authority is not arrogance. Authority is not about pride or proving yourself. Authority is about stewardship, responsibility, and divine trust. God has placed you as a steward over blessings, wisdom, and opportunities that those before you never walked in. This means your life is no longer casual. You cannot live recklessly because every choice you make echoes into generations. Your prayers carry weight. Your words carry weight. Your decisions carry weight. That's why the spiritual attacks have increased. They're not fighting the person you are. They're fighting the authority you carry. Understand this. When you walk in your authority, doors open, not just for you, but for those who come after you. When you declare healing, it doesn't just flow in your body. It flows through your bloodline. When you pray for provision, it doesn't just bless your home. It creates a covering for those connected to you. Your authority extends beyond the natural. It shifts the unseen realm. But authority also demands discipline. You can't speak like you used to. You can't react like you used to. You can't entertain the same environments or circles that don't align with your calling. Why? Because what rests on you is too precious to be wasted. God trusted you with this mantle because he knows you won't squander it. That's why he calls you higher, not to burden you, but to position you. And here's the truth. Authority means no longer apologizing for your calling. You spent too long trying to shrink, try not to intimidate others, try to explain why you think differently. But you were never meant to blend in. You were set apart. You were consecrated. You were handpicked. Stop apologizing for being different. It's not rebellion. It's revelation. It's the mark of one chosen to lead. Think about this. You're walking in answers to prayers. Your ancestors prayed, but never lived to see. There were people in your bloodline who begged God for freedom, for healing, for opportunity, for breakthrough. And though they did not see it in their lifetime, you are the manifestation of their cries. You're the living evidence that God listens. That's why the authority on you is so weighty. It is generational. Chosen one. Authority is not just about how high you rise. It's about how much light you carry for others. It's about walking with humility, but also with boldness. It's about knowing that heaven backs you, that angels walk with you, that doors bow before you, because God's name is written over your destiny. You are not ordinary. You are not random. You are not replaceable. You are a divine response to centuries of prayers. So walk in it. Speak with confidence. Move with conviction. Pray with expectation. Live with integrity. When you rise, rise fully. Don't shrink to make others comfortable. Don't dim your fire to fit in. Step boldly because your authority is the evidence that God can raise someone from the ashes and crown them with glory. Chapter 7. Your time to rise. Chosen one. The waiting season is over. The years of silence, of feeling overlooked, of wondering when it would finally be your turn. Those days have come to an end. This is your moment. This is your appointed time to rise. God didn't allow you to walk through the fire just to leave you scarred. He didn't put all that fire in your spirit for nothing. Every test, every tear, every betrayal, every sleepless night. It was not wasted. It was preparation. Heaven was shaping you, refining you, and equipping you for such a time as this. Now the divine alarm clock is ringing in your soul. You can feel it. You know something is shifting. You can't settle for less anymore. You can't go back to who you used to be. The old version of you has expired, and the new version is stepping into full authority. This is not the time to shrink back. This is not the time to second-guess your worth. This is not the time to hide your gifts or silence your voice. You are worthy. You are chosen. You are backed by heaven. Chosen one. The rise you're stepping into is not just about personal success. It is generational. It is eternal. When you rise, your children and their children will rise. When you break through, your bloodline breaks through. You are carrying the torch that no one before you had the strength or the opportunity to carry. But now it is in your hands, and heaven is cheering you on to keep it burning. Think about everything you survived. Things that should have taken you out. Situations that should have left you broken. Storms that should have drowned you. Yet you're still here. That's not luck. That's divine preservation. That's proof that your destiny is too important to die in the middle. If the enemy couldn't stop you then, he can't stop you now. You were preserved for this very hour. This rise requires courage. It requires faith. It requires boldness. Fear will try to whisper that you're not ready. Doubt will try to convince you that you're not qualified. But here's the truth. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. And you, chosen one, have been called. You have been appointed. You have been anointed for such a time as this. So hold your head high. Walk like the royalty you are. Speak like the prophet you were born to be. Move like the warrior God, trained in silence. Do not let the weight of responsibility scare you, because you are not carrying it alone. Heaven is backing you. Angels are surrounding you. The Spirit of the living God is guiding you. Your yes to God will change history. Your obedience will shift generations. Your rise will echo through eternity. And here's the most powerful part. This rise isn't just for you. It's for every ancestor who prayed but never saw. It's for every future descendant who will live freer because of your faith. It's for every soul connected to your light.